We live by rules every single day, from stopping at a red light to signing a contract. But have you ever, and I mean really, stopped to ask a much bigger question? What even is law? Where does it come from? What gives it its power over us? Well, today, that's exactly what we're going to dive into.
Right? I mean, what's the magic ingredient? Is it just a rule that a king or a government tells you to follow? Or is it something deeper, something that grows out of our shared culture and our history? Maybe it's not about any of that. Maybe law is just a practical tool we invented to solve problems. That's the puzzle we're going to piece together.
You see, this isn't just about lawyers and judges. This is a philosophical question that gets to the very core of how we organize ourselves as a society. And there's a whole field of study dedicated to answering it, and it's called jurisprudence. So what on earth is jurisprudence? Okay, think of it this way. It's the why behind the law. A lawyer studies what the law is so they can win a case, but a jurist, someone who studies jurisprudence, asks why the law is that way in the first place. It's the deep thinking, the big ideas that our entire legal system is built on. So here's our game plan. First, we'll get a handle on what jurisprudence is. Then we're going to explore 3 totally different theories: law as a top-down command, law bubbling up from the people, and law as a handy tool. And finally, we'll see if we can bring it all together.
All right, section 1, what is jurisprudence? Like we said, we're digging past the surface level rules to get to the bedrock they're all built on. So, what's the point of all this? Well, you're probably not going to use it to argue a parking ticket. Its real value is so much bigger. When you understand the theories behind the law, you start to see how our legal systems are built, why they work the way they do, and how we can make them better for everyone. Okay, let's jump into our first big idea. This is from what's called the analytical school, and they see law as something very, very simple. It's a command handed down from on high. It's the ultimate top-down approach. And the main guy for this school of thought, John Austin, he summed it up perfectly. For him, law has 3 key parts: a command, coming from a sovereign, a ruler or a government, and it's backed by a sanction. A sanction is just a fancy word for a punishment if you don't obey. Command, sovereign, sanction. That's it. So let's break that down. The source is the sovereign, the person or group in charge. The law is the command they give. And the sanction, the punishment, is what makes you follow it. Now, this is really important. This school doesn't care about what the law should be or if it's fair or moral. It only cares about the law as it is, what's actually written down and enforced. It's a very clean, very straightforward way of looking at things. Now, get ready for a complete 180. The historical school comes along and says, nope, you've got it all backward. They argue that real law doesn't come from a ruler at all. It actually bubbles up from the people themselves. Friedrich von Savigny, the leading voice here, had this amazing idea he called the Volksgeist. It's German for the spirit of the people. He believed that law is just like a nation's language or its culture. It's this organic thing that grows directly out of the shared consciousness and character of its people. So get this. According to this theory, you don't make law, you find it. You find it by looking at the long-standing customs and traditions of a community. In fact, to these thinkers, custom is way more authentic and important than some formal law passed by a government. Law isn't some universal code. It's unique to a specific people and their unique journey through history. And that sets up this fantastic debate, right? On one side, you've got the analytical school saying law is a top-down command deliberately created by a ruler, and on the other, the historical school says no way. It's a bottom-up expression that grows organically from the people. Just 2 completely opposite ways of seeing where law comes from. So where does that leave us? Let's bring in our third contender, the sociological school. This group takes a way more practical approach. They basically ask, hey, forget about where law comes from for a second. What does it actually do? Roscoe Pound, a major figure in this school, said it best. Law is simply a social institution created to satisfy social wants. It's not about a king's command or the spirit of the people. It's a tool, a mechanism for getting things done and keeping society running smoothly. Pound actually called this method social engineering. The job of the law, he said, is to be like an engineer. Step 1, figure out all the competing interests people have in society. Step 2, define the rules to protect those interests. And step 3, balance everything to give the most people what they want with the least amount of conflict. It's a super pragmatic, problem-solving view of law. So what kind of interests are we talking about? Well, they fall into three big buckets. You've got individual interests, like your personal safety and property. Then there are public interests, things that concern the government itself. And finally, you have broad social interests, stuff like public health, general security, and social progress. The law's job is to be the ultimate juggler, keeping all these interests in balance. Okay, wow, we've seen three totally different ways of looking at this. Law as a command, law from the people, and law as a tool. So, which one is right? Well, maybe that's not the right question. Let's see if we can find some common ground. This table sums things up nicely. You've got the positivist view, which we saw with the analytical school. Law is what the sovereign says it is. You've got the sociological view. Law is a tool to meet society's needs. And then there's this broader idealist category, which connects to the historical school, defining law by whether it's just or unjust.
But here's what's so cool. Even though they disagree on so much, these theories actually point to a few essential truths about modern law. First, law today pretty much requires a state to exist. Second, whether you like it or not, law needs some kind of sanction or consequence to actually work. And third, law is always created for a purpose, whether it's to keep a ruler in power, express a culture, or solve a social problem. So at the end of the day, why does any of this matter? Because your answer to what is law has massive real-world consequences. Seriously. A society that believes law is just the command of a ruler is going to look and feel very different from one that believes law is a tool for balancing everyone's interests. Our philosophy of law literally builds the world around us.
And that's the real takeaway here. This whole field of jurisprudence isn't just some dusty academic debate. It forces us all to think about what our rules are for, what our institutions are for. Which leaves us with a final, really important question. If law is the very tool we use to shape our world, what kind of world should we be trying to shape with it?